My name is Mabel Dwyer, and I'm 82 years old. My bones ache most mornings, and my knees groan louder than the coffee maker. But my heart? That's where the real pain lives. I raised my only daughter, Cassandra, all by myself after her father died when she was just 5. I worked 2 jobs, waitressing at Grady's Diner by day and cleaning offices by night, just to make sure she had lunch money and ballet shoes. I gave her everything. And now? She just took everything away. It started with a whisper of rain on the roof that afternoon. The kind of soft drizzle that turns the pavement dark and makes the house smell like wet earth. I had just taken a warm pie out of the oven when Cassandra burst into the kitchen, her voice like a slap. "I told you, Mom," she snapped, tossing her handbag on the counter. "I can't keep adjusting my schedule because you don't feel like watching the baby." I blinked. "Honey, it's not about feeling like it. My back can't take it. I slipped 2 discs last year, remember?" She rolled her eyes and her husband, Grant, came in behind her, shaking his head like I was some stubborn child. "Then what are you even doing here, Mabel?" he said. "You're just taking up space." Those words, "just taking up space," they sank into my soul like ice water. Cassandra crossed her arms. "If you can't be useful, maybe it's time you moved on. I can't do this anymore. Grant and I need our space." She said it so calmly, like she was asking me to change the channel on the TV. I stood there, holding the pie, watching steam curl up from the crust while my own daughter, my own flesh and blood, gave me an eviction notice with her eyes. "You want me gone?" I whispered. Cassandra shrugged. "It's best for everyone." They didn't even help me pack. They just stood there while I shuffled back to the guest room, grabbed my few clothes, my Bible, and the old photo album with all of Cassandra's childhood pictures. By the time I zipped the bag shut, the rain was falling hard outside. I stepped out into it, clutching my things in a cheap duffel bag, my coat too thin for the cold. The door shut behind me with a click. And that was it. No revoir. No who. Not even a take care. I walked down that driveway, tears and rain mixing on my cheeks. My back screamed with every step. I didn't know where I was going. I had $84 in my purse and nowhere to stay. But something inside me cracked open. Not with sorrow. With fire. If I was just taking up space, then fine. Let's see what happens when I make space for myself. The rain didn't stop that night. I walked 3 blocks before my legs gave out. And I sat on a cold bench outside the Dollar Depot, shivering and soaked, watching people rush by like I didn't exist. No umbrella, no coat, no place to lay my head. I was 82 and homeless, not because of poverty, but because of my own daughter. I sat there, trying to stay awake. I was afraid if I closed my eyes I wouldn't wake up again. That's when my mind drifted back, way back, to the first time I held Cassandra. She came into the world screaming like a siren, with hair as dark as coal and fists clenched tight like she was ready to fight life from the very beginning. I was just 24. Widowed, scared, and with nothing but a rented trailer in a dusty corner of Missouri. But the moment I held her against my chest, I whispered, "I'll never let you go." I kept that promise. 4 years I worked double shifts and missed birthdays. I went hungry some nights so she could have lunch at school. When she wanted piano lessons in middle school, I cleaned houses on weekends just to afford it. When she got her first period and was too scared to tell anyone, I bought every kind of pad and tampon in the store until we figured out what worked. She used to cry when I left for work and wouldn't sleep until I came back. She used to call me her best friend. "I love you to the sky and back," she'd say every night. So what changed? Grant. That's what changed. The man she married. He came into her life like a salesman with a too-perfect smile. First I was glad. He brought stability, structure, and a good job at the bank. But soon he started finding little problems with me. "Why does your mom talk so much? Why does she always wear old clothes? Why is she always around?" Before I knew it, Cassandra started treating me like furniture. Something to use or ignore. When their baby came, little Emmy, who lit up my whole heart, I was useful again. I bathed her, sang to her, and walked her up and down that hallway when she had colic. I was Emmy's world and she was mine. But the moment my body began to fail, I became a burden. That night on the bench, a man from the grocery store brought me a plastic cup of hot coffee. "You all right, ma'am?" he asked. I lied and nodded, just waiting on a ride. But there was no ride coming. Just me, an aching back, and a heart that had loved too much for far too long. I looked at my purse, thought about calling my old friend Opal, who lived 2 towns over, but pride stopped me. What was I supposed to say? My daughter kicked me out because I can't be her full-time nanny anymore? Then I heard something. A soft giggle from across the lot. A little girl in rain boots was splashing in puddles while her mom yelled for her to get back in the car. She looked just like Cassandra at 5, wild, free, and full of life. That was the moment I made my choice. I stood up slowly, wincing from the pain. I wasn't going to die on a bench. And I wasn't going to disappear like a sad chapter in someone else's story. If Cassandra thought I was done, she hadn't seen anything yet. I was Mabel Dwyer. I had raised a child by myself, survived loss, heartbreak, and hard winters. I wasn't just going to walk away. I was going to walk into something new. But first, I needed a plan. I spent the night inside an old church lobby. Pastor Joel, a kind man in his 60s, found me still sitting outside the Dollar Depot around midnight. He didn't ask many questions. Just opened the back of his truck, handed me a blanket, and said, "You'll be safe at the Lord's house tonight." And I was. But by morning, I knew I couldn't just keep drifting like a leaf in the wind. I needed more than shelter. I needed direction, dignity, and a little bit of quiet revenge. Not the kind that hurts people. No, I wasn't raised that way. But the kind that makes people stop and realize what they lost. By 9 a.m., I called Opal. "Lord, Mabel?" She gasped the moment she heard my voice. "Is that you? You okay?" "No," I said honestly. "Cassandra kicked me out. I got nowhere to go." There was silence for a second, then, "You get your bones over here. I'll come get you." By noon, Opal's rusted Honda Civic pulled into the church parking lot. She looked just the same. Short white curls, bright pink lipstick, and a fire in her that never went out. I hadn't seen her in almost 4 years. "Girl, you look like you wrestled a raccoon in a rainstorm," she said, hugging me tight. "Come on, let's get some hot soup in you." We drove back to her farmhouse, a sweet, creaky home sitting on 5 acres just outside Maplewood. It smelled like cinnamon and old wood. I dropped my bag by the door, looked around, and for the first time in 48 hours I breathed. Over lunch, I told her everything. The fights, the babysitting, the way Cassandra changed. And Grant, always smiling while slowly turning my daughter against me. Opal didn't even blink. "You know what I think?" she said. "It's time you stop making yourself small for people who don't even see you anymore." I nodded slowly, my spoon shaking a little in my hand. "But what do I do now, Opal? I don't have much savings left. I gave Cassandra most of it 2 years ago for that down payment. I only have $84 to my name." Opal raised her brow. "Then maybe it's time you take something back." That's when it hit me. I had nothing but time, hands that still worked, and a name that carried weight in this town. Before Cassandra met Grant and moved to the suburbs, I used to run a little home-based baking business. Mabel's Pies. People still talked about my peach cobbler at church picnics. I remembered the joy I felt pulling warm loaves from the oven, wrapping them in ribbons, and seeing neighbors smile. I smiled at Opal. "Do you still have your old mixer?" She grinned. "Still works like a charm. And I still have your recipe book in the attic. You left it here during the great plumbing flood of 2012, remember?" I laughed. A real laugh. The first in days. That night, I pulled out a notebook and started scribbling. A plan. Not just to make money, but to make a life. One that didn't rely on anyone's approval. One that didn't beg to be kept. One that reminded people exactly who Mabel Dwyer was. If Cassandra thought I was too old, too weak, or just taking up space, she was about to learn something new. You don't throw away your roots and expect to stand tall. By the next morning, I was in the kitchen before sunrise. Apron tied, hands floured, heart steady. Opal had cleared the whole counter for me and placed my old mixer in the center like it was an altar. "The church ladies still talk about your lemon pound cake like it's magic," she said, sipping her coffee. "Go give them a miracle." I hadn't baked in years. My hands were slower now. My wrists ached when I lifted the heavy flour bag. But something about the rhythm, the measuring, the kneading, the way butter softened under my touch. It came back like an old song. By noon the house smelled like cinnamon, nutmeg, and healing. I made 6 pies that day. 3 apple, 2 cherry, 1 sweet potato. All perfect. All full of love. And maybe just a little fury. Opal posted pictures on Facebook. Guess who's back in the kitchen? Mabel's pies are back, y'all. And before I could wash the mixing bowl, we had 12 orders. 12. That's more than I got in my last 6 months before Cassandra asked me to stop baking and focus on Emmy. I remembered how she laughed when I told her I wanted to start it up again. Nobody wants homemade pies anymore, Mom. Just go rest. Rest. I had rested enough. Now I was working. I was building something again. Not for her, for me. The next few days were a whirlwind. Opal's niece, Dakota, helped set up an online ordering page. Her grandson built a little logo with a drawing of me in an apron. Mabel's Magic. That's what we called it. I thought it was too much at first, but Opal winked. If they can call frozen pizza deluxe, you can call your pies magic. We added a tip jar by the door for pickups. By day 4, there was over $100 in it. People left little notes too. We missed you, Mabel. Your pecan pie saved my Thanksgiving in 2008. I told my husband if you started baking again, we'd never leave town. It felt like the world was whispering, welcome back. We see you. But not everyone was happy. On the 5th day, as I was rolling out dough by the window, I saw a black SUV pull into the gravel driveway. Cassandra. She stepped out, sunglasses on, lips tight, baby on her hip. She didn't knock. She just walked in like it was her house and stared at me, flowered, glowing, smiling, with something between shock and offense. What are you doing here? She asked flatly. I looked at her calmly. I live here now. With Opal, she scoffed. You just moved in? After storming out of my house. I set the rolling pin down gently. You didn't exactly give me a choice, Cassandra. You told me I was just taking up space. She blinked, her mouth twitching. You know I didn't mean it like that. But you said it. Silence. Then she looked around the kitchen, eyes falling on the pies, the packaging, the online order sheet. You're selling pies again? I am. She shook her head. You don't need to be doing this. You're too old. What if you fall? What if you burn yourself? I tilted my head. What if I succeed? She opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. Only her daughter, little Emmy, broke the moment, wriggling in her arms and calling, Grandma. I reached out and touched her tiny hand. My chest tightened. I missed that child more than words could explain. But I didn't beg. Cassandra narrowed her eyes. This isn't over. And she walked out. No oublier. Just like last time. But this time, I wasn't the one left behind. The day after Cassandra's visit, I baked 30 pies. Not out of necessity, but out of something deeper, a fire. The kind that grows inside you when you've been underestimated, dismissed, and told you're too old to matter. But in between the rhythm of baking, I couldn't stop thinking about Emmy. The way she reached out and said Grandma like no time had passed. My heart ached like a torn photograph. I'd helped raise that child since the day she was born. Now I only saw her as a shadow behind tinted glass. Don't let her keep that baby from you, Opal said sharply, watching me glaze a cherry pie. She can be stubborn, but you're the one who taught her how to love in the first place. I don't want to fight, I whispered. But I'm afraid this is a fight. And it was. The next week, Cassandra made it official. A message arrived on Opal's front step.
No stamp, no envelope.
Just a typed letter shoved under the welcome mat. Mabel, since you've chosen to continue your business, without discussing it with me or respecting our boundaries, please know that we will be limiting contact between you and Emmy until further notice. It's best for her not to be confused. I hope you understand. Please respect our family's decision. Cassandra and Grant. I read it 5 times. My hands trembled. Not with fear but rage. Confused? What's confusing about a grandmother who loves her grandchild? That night I didn't sleep. I sat by the window watching the moon hang low like a secret. I thought about all the nights I rocked Cassandra to sleep when she had night terrors. All the scraped knees I kissed. All the monsters I chased out from under her bed. I had built her world brick by brick. And now she was tearing mine down. But instead of collapsing, I got smarter. I called Pastor Joel. Do you still run that Sunday bake sale fundraiser? I do, he said. Why? I'd like to sponsor it. Mabel's Magic. All proceeds go to the Children's Choir Fund. He was stunned. That's very generous, Mabel. It's not about generosity, I said. It's about making sure people remember who I am. And they did. The church bulletin printed a full-page thank you to Mabel Dwyer of Mabel's Magic Pies. Pictures flooded Facebook. The kids sang at the fundraiser in t-shirts with my logo. My name echoed in grocery stores, salons, and church halls. Even Emmy's preschool posted a thank you note online. Special thanks to local legend Mrs. Dwyer for supporting our classroom project. And guess who saw it? Grant. 2 days later he showed up alone.
No, Cassandra.
He stood stiffly on the porch, holding a cup of coffee from a drive-thru and looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. You're making this very public, Mabel, he said quietly. You're forcing us into a position. I stared at him. I'm not forcing anyone. I'm just baking pies. You know what I mean, he said through clenched teeth. This isn't how families solve things. Oh, I said calmly. You mean like throwing out your wife's elderly mother into the rain without a plan? He flinched. I suggest you go home, I continued. Tell Cassandra I love her. And I love Emmy. But I will not disappear quietly so the two of you can feel comfortable about what you did. He didn't reply, just turned and walked away. I closed the door gently behind him. Then I looked at Opal, who'd been listening from the stairs. You think I'm making it worse? I asked. She shook her head. I think you're finally making it fair. That night, I started drafting something new. Not a pie recipe, but a letter. To a lawyer. Because there was one more thing Cassandra didn't know. 2 years ago, I added Emmy as my partial heir in a small trust fund left by my cousin who passed. A trust one managed. One they couldn't touch, but could certainly be removed from. If Cassandra wanted to draw lines in the sand, she needed to understand that I had chalk too. I never liked lawyers much. They always reminded me of men in pressed suits who charged you by the minute just to break your heart gently. But this time was different. I wasn't fighting for money. I was fighting for Emmy. And for myself. I sat across from Martha Tilton, a no-nonsense estate lawyer in her late 50s with cropped silver hair and readers on a chain. I knew her from years back. Her kids went to school with Cassandra. She remembered my pies before she remembered my name. So what exactly are you looking to do, Mabel? She asked, pen poised. I want to update the trust, I said. Emmy's name stays. Cassandra's name goes. Martha blinked. You sure? She's made it clear she doesn't want me in her life, I said. But she can't use me as a daycare, kick me out, then still expect to inherit what little I have. Emmy deserves that future. Cassandra doesn't. Martha nodded slowly. You know this will make things worse. I looked out the window then back at her. Only for a while. The paperwork was signed that same afternoon. By Friday, I had boxes of pies stacked to the ceiling and a line of folks outside Opal's porch. Orders came in from 3 counties over. Mabel's Magic was becoming a sensation. A retired teacher shared a glowing review on Facebook. A local reporter asked for an interview. And then came the whisper from town. Cassandra was mad. She had seen the fundraiser. The preschool shout-out. The growing business. But it wasn't until someone, I still don't know who, told her I had met with a lawyer that the real storm hit. She came back. But not to talk. She came with a folded piece of paper, trembling hands, and fury in her eyes. She stormed into Opal's yard like she owned the land and shouted from the gravel path. So now you're threatening my family? With a trust lawyer? I stepped outside calmly, wiping flour from my hands. I'm protecting your daughter's future, I said. That's all. No, she shouted. You're doing this to get back at me. You want to make me look bad. You're turning Emmy against me. I walked down the steps and looked her in the eye. I haven't said a word against you to that child. But one day she'll ask why her grandma doesn't tuck her in anymore. Why I stopped coming around. And I won't lie to her. Can you say the same? Her face softened for just a moment, then hardened again. You think you're the victim here. But you walked out. I was pushed, I said calmly. There's a difference. Her voice cracked then. I was overwhelmed. Grant said he said you were making things worse. That you were interfering with Emmy's routine. That you were trying to take over. And I just believed him. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. You let your husband convince you I was a problem. Instead of remembering I'm the one who raised you when I had no one. Her lips trembled. I didn't mean to hurt you. But you did. Tears slid down her cheeks. For a moment she looked just like the little girl who once clung to my legs when her bike wobbled. The little girl I once protected from everything, even thunder. Mom, she whispered. Can we fix this? I didn't answer right away. Instead, I looked toward the porch where Emmy stood behind Opal, her tiny hand pressed to the glass. We'll talk, I finally said. But not today. Today I've got a town to feed. Cassandra stepped back, stunned. I think for the first time in her life she saw me not just as her mother, but as a woman strong, standing and choosing her own time. As she left, Opal came up beside me and nudged my shoulder. You feel that? I raised a brow. What? She smiled. That wasn't a storm. That was an earthquake. Quiet. But everything shifted. Days passed. Orders kept flying in. I was baking from dawn till dusk, sometimes even pulling double batches through the night. Dakota helped run deliveries. Opal managed calls and emails. We were a well-oiled machine. A retired schoolteacher, a widow with arthritis, and a teenage girl who knew her way around hashtags. But my heart? It stayed quiet. Cassandra hadn't come back since the confrontation in the yard. I hadn't reached out either. Part of me wanted to. Part of me couldn't. Then one morning Emmy's voice rang through the kitchen. Grandma! I turned and there she was. Pigtails swinging, arms wide open, face bright as ever. Cassandra stood behind her on the porch, holding a diaper bag and a cardboard box. Can we come in? She asked softly. I didn't move for a moment. Not out of anger but disbelief. Then I stepped aside, wiping my hands on my apron. Inside, Emmy danced around the kitchen like she'd never left. She pointed at every pie. Did you make all these? She gasped. I sure did, I said, scooping her up, heart trembling. And guess what? The cherry one has your name on it. Cassandra watched us. There was something different in her eyes, tired maybe, softer. I brought something, she said, lifting the box onto the table. These were yours. You left them behind when you left. Inside were photo albums, a teacup I loved, and a few of Emmy's drawings, ones I had pinned to the guest room wall back at their house. She placed a final item on the counter. My old ceramic rolling pin, cracked but still beautiful. I kept it, she whispered. I don't know why. I guess part of me didn't want to let you go all the way. We stood there in silence. I could hear Emmy singing in the other room. It was the same lullaby I used to hum to Cassandra when she had nightmares. The same one Cassandra said she'd forgotten. Then she said it. I'm sorry, Mom. She was crying now. I let Grant's voice become louder than yours. He made you feel small and I didn't stop it. And when you said no to babysitting, I didn't hear your pain. I just heard my own stress. I took a slow breath. You didn't just hear your stress. You chose it. I know. I needed your kindness, Cassandra, I said. Not your convenience. Tears fell freely down her cheeks. I don't want to be like this. I don't want Emmy to grow up thinking family only matters when they're useful. That hit something deep in me. I reached for her hand. Then don't just say you're sorry, I said. Show me. I will, she nodded. Can we start over? I glanced toward the kitchen. Help me with this dough, I said. I'll teach you the peach cobbler recipe. The right way. She let out a teary laugh and rolled up her sleeves. God help me. We worked side by side, just like we used to. Later that afternoon, after Emmy went down for a nap in Opal's guest room, Cassandra and I sat on the porch, sipping iced tea. She turned to me and asked quietly, Did you really go to a lawyer? I did. Her face fell. But I didn't remove you, I said. I just made a change. You're no longer first in line. She blinked. That's fair. I smiled gently. Maybe someday I'll revisit it. But not today. Trust takes time. And you've got to earn it back, just like I had to earn my place in this new life. She nodded. I will. As the sun dipped below the trees, painting the yard in gold, I realized something. Forgiveness isn't loud. It doesn't arrive with a shout or slam of a door. Sometimes it comes in the quiet kneading of dough, in a shared cup of tea, in a little girl's song echoing through an old farmhouse. That evening, I didn't just get my daughter back. I got something even rarer. Hope. Cassandra started coming by more often after that afternoon. Not every day, and not always with Emmy. Sometimes just to sit. Sometimes to help roll dough or label boxes. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. Still, there was a shadow that followed her. A tension she didn't speak of. Grant. He hadn't reached out. No apology. No phone call. No visit. Nothing. And Cassandra never mentioned him. Until the day she came with a bruise just barely hidden under her makeup. I noticed the moment she walked in. Her smile was stiff. Her eyes red. I said nothing at first, just handed her a mixing bowl and gently asked, "Rough morning?" She nodded, eyes avoiding mine. He's frustrated. Says I've been distracted. That I spend too much time here. That Emmy is confused. I paused. Did he hurt you? She froze, hand tightening on the spoon. No. Then she added softer. Not in a way you can prove. My chest clenched. That ghost, the one I'd feared for years, had finally stepped into the room. I had always known Grant was controlling. I saw it in the way he talked over her. The way she checked her phone nervously when she was out too long. But I never imagined it had gone this far. I want to leave him, she whispered. But I'm scared. He's got the house in his name. The bank account. The car. Even Emmy's school is paid through his job. If I walk away. You won't be walking alone, I said. She looked up. You and Emmy have a place here. Always. She broke down then. Right there on the kitchen floor. I sat with her, held her like I used to when she scraped her knees at the playground. She cried until her breath calmed, until her voice was steady again. That night we made a plan. I called Opal's nephew, a retired police officer, to quietly guide us on how to protect Cassandra legally. We met with a counselor from a local women's shelter. I talked to Pastor Joel, who promised discretion and a safe space if needed. But the hardest part? Convincing Cassandra she deserved better. He used to be sweet, she told me once. He wasn't always like this. They never are, I said gently. One evening, Emmy was asleep upstairs in Opal's old guest room, and Cassandra and I were boxing up pies. She turned to me and said, I've been looking for apartments. Just small ones. For me and Emmy. And, I asked. She bit her lip. I don't know how to tell him. I placed a pie gently into a delivery box. You don't have to tell him. Not yet. Just be ready. But we didn't get the time. 2 days later, Grant showed up. Not at the porch. Not with flowers. But with rage. He stood in the gravel driveway, his SUV idling behind him, fists clenched, face twisted. Where is she, Mabel? He shouted. Where's my wife? Opal stepped out before I could. Not here for your drama, son, she said coolly. Take your shouting elsewhere. She's my wife. She's my daughter, I said, stepping forward. And your behavior has consequences. He stared at me, but I didn't flinch. I wasn't scared anymore. You always hated me, he said through his teeth. No, I said softly. I always saw you. Big difference. Then Cassandra stepped outside, Emmy in her arms. She didn't say a word. She just stood there, strong and still, like a mother lion protecting her cub. I'm not coming back, she said. His face went pale. You're making the biggest mistake of your life, he growled. No, she said, holding Emmy tighter. The mistake was staying this long. And with that she walked back inside. Grant didn't move for a full minute. Then he got in the car, slammed the door, and disappeared down the road. We stood in silence for a long time after. Cassandra was shaking but not crying. You did it, I whispered. She looked at me.
No.
We did. That night, I moved Emmy's things from the guest room into the bedroom next to mine. My girls were home again. But I knew this peace wasn't permanent. Because when a man like Grant loses control, he doesn't disappear quietly. The next morning felt strange. Too quiet. Like the calm before a storm you feel in your bones but can't quite name. I stood on the porch with my coffee watching the road, waiting for a car that didn't come. Not yet. Cassandra was inside reading to Emmy. Her voice was steady, but I could tell she hadn't slept. None of us really had. We all knew Grant wouldn't let it go. By noon I got the call. It was Dakota. "Mabel, someone set fire to the church donation bin last night," she said. "Pastor Joel thinks it might have been a warning. No proof. But he said to be careful." My hands trembled, but I didn't drop the phone. He wouldn't dare hurt the church. Would he? I hung up and turned to Cassandra. "We're going to the police." She nodded. No argument. At the station, Opal's nephew, Deputy Carl, met us outside the building. His jaw clenched when he saw Cassandra's bruise. "He do that?" She nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "Yes." Carl let us inside personally. We filed the protection order right then and there. He promised extra patrols on our road and advised us to install a camera out front. Dakota's brother put one up by evening. That night, I sat up late, watching the footage on my phone, pie cooling in the kitchen behind me. I didn't bake a single pie that day. First time in weeks. But it didn't matter. This was more important. I was protecting the family I had almost lost, again. Around midnight, headlights pulled into the driveway. Not Grant's car. It was Pastor Joel's truck. He came bearing a pie dish and a small envelope. "Thought you might want this back," he said. And this came to the church mailbox. I opened it slowly. No return address. Just one line written in all caps. "You should have stayed quiet." No signature. No clue. I stared at it for a long time, then folded it and slid it into the drawer. "Let him bark," I said. Pastor Joel looked surprised. I looked toward the bedroom, where Emmy's nightlight glowed through the cracked door. "He took enough of my voice already," I said. "He's not taking our peace." The next day, Cassandra found an apartment listing, small but close to the preschool. Clean. Safe. Affordable. I offered her money from my baking savings, but she refused. "No, Mom. You've done enough. You need to keep building your life. I need to build mine." I cried when she signed the lease. Not out of sadness, but pride. My little girl was finally choosing herself. 2 days later, the paper ran a full-page feature. "The Pie Lady Who Rose Again. How Mabel Dwyer is Feeding a Town and Healing a Family." Cassandra framed it for me. That same evening, as we boxed orders together one last time before her move, she turned to me and said, "Do you think you'll ever forgive me?" I paused. "I already did," I said. "But I'm still learning to trust again. And that takes time." She nodded. "I'll earn it. Every day." I handed her a pie, her favorite pecan, and said, "Then take this. It's a start." That night, she and Emmy moved into their new apartment. It was small, yes, but when I visited it smelled like cinnamon, fresh sheets, and beginnings. A week passed. Then 2. No sign of Grant. No letters. No headlights. Nothing. Maybe he got tired. Maybe he realized she wasn't scared anymore. Maybe he finally saw what strength looks like when it rises from the ashes. But I wasn't waiting around to find out. I had pies to bake. I had orders to fill. I had a life that was mine, finally. 2 months passed. The leaves turned. Emmy turned 5. Cassandra started a part-time job at the library and picked up painting again, something she hadn't touched since high school. Her apartment began to feel like home. And my kitchen? My kitchen became more than a business. It became a legacy. Mabel's magic expanded from pies to jams, biscuits, even holiday baskets. Dakota ran the online page. Opal opened up her garden for weekend sales. And I finally slept at night. No more fear. No more letters. No more looking over my shoulder. But the twist? It came quietly. In a courtroom. Cassandra had filed for full custody of Emmy. It was a simple case. Grant hadn't tried to see them in weeks, but suddenly, he showed up. With a lawyer. He tried to paint her unstable. Said she ran off. Said she manipulated me to gain access to funds. Said she used Emmy as leverage. I was called to testify. I sat on that cold wooden bench, hands folded, dress ironed, voice strong. Mrs. Dwyer, the lawyer asked, is it true you financially cut your daughter out of a family trust as retaliation? I smiled. No, sir. I made decisions based on behavior. She's earning her place back, not by begging, but by building. And what she's building, that's worth more than any trust. He blinked. Later, the judge asked if I had anything to add before closing. I stood, cleared my throat, and said, I'm 83. I've buried a husband. I've raised a daughter alone. I've scrubbed toilets, cleaned houses, baked pies, and given everything I had to people who often gave me nothing in return. But the one thing I never did was take up space. I looked directly at Grant. I filled it. With love. With hard work. With loyalty. And that little girl, Emmy, she knows it. Just like I knew it when I rocked her mother to sleep 30 years ago. Cassandra wept in that courtroom. The judge ruled in her favor. Full custody. No visitation until Grant completed anger management and parenting courses. He didn't even look back when he walked out. Later that night, Cassandra came to the house with Emmy in her arms and said, we did it, Mom. You saved us. No, I said, hugging her. You saved yourself. I just reminded you who you were. We had cobbler that night. Real cobbler. No label. No order slip. Just 3 generations on a porch swing, passing around the dish with 1 spoon. A week later, I got a letter. No return address again. I opened it slowly. But this time, it wasn't from Grant. It was from Emmy. Written in pink crayon. Dear Grandma, I love your pies. But I love you more. Mommy says when I grow up, I can have a bakery too. Can I call it Mabel's Magic too? You are never just space. You are the whole kitchen. Love, Emmy. I cried right there at the kitchen table. Because sometimes the revenge you never see coming is love returned. And the justice you crave? It doesn't come through courtrooms. Comes through healing. Through staying. Through rising. Through refusing to shrink. Mabel Dwyer didn't just get her life back. She built a better one. From flour. From fire. And from finally choosing herself.